In episode 141 of the Cryptoverse, I reported on a talk that John McAfee gave at the Blockchain Money Conference in London. The main point he made in his talk was that hardware wallets were the only way to truly store your Bitcoin securely. So I reached out to Ledger, a company based in Paris, who build products that bridge the gap between the physical world and blockchains. They were kind enough to send me their top-of-the-line Ledger Nano S hardware wallet for me to check out. Let's explore. Dash is the privacy-focused digital currency that offers transactions with instant confirmations. Its unique, decentralized decision-making and self-funding system make it an ideal choice as a stable and secure digital cash. Click the link in the video description to learn more. So, quick disclaimer before we begin, guys. While Ledger have provided me with this wallet for free, I have received no sponsorship money for this video. Neither have I agreed to put any kind of positive slant on the review. That means the opinions in this video are mine and mine alone. Now, I've made this review for people seriously considering the Ledger wallet as a purchase, which means it's as long as it needs to be for me to be happy that I've covered everything. I've split the review into chapters, so if you're watching this on YouTube and you want to skip to a particular section, then just click on the relevant chapter in the video description and the video will jump ahead. So without further ado, let's talk specifications. So specifications wise, this device has a USB connector, but no Bluetooth or contactless NFC feature. According to the manufacturer's specifications, it supports Bitcoin, Ethereum, and various altcoins such as Dash, Litecoin, Doge, and Zcash, or Zcash. Very interesting. Now there's no touchscreen on this one, but it does support two-factor authentication via the little screen that is built into the device itself. That differs from the other two cheaper devices in the product line that require a security card or a mobile app for the two-factor authentication. All products in the lineup support multi-signature wallets, but only the Nano S has the open source firmware, the FIDO authentication, and can make use of the full-blown Ledger Manager Chrome app rather than the standard wallet app. And this is how the Nano S is able to support all those altcoins. The Nano S model is priced here at €58. However, you can get started with a hardware wallet from Ledger for as little as €15 by purchasing the Ledger HW1. And those prices are plus any relevant taxes, by the way. Alright, I think that's quite enough talk about specifications, so let's move on to the unboxing. Now, I wanted to be subtle when taking a look at the packaging here, but quite frankly, it's impossible. The packaging is almost identical to the box design that Apple use. I mean, look, if I place this iPad box right next to the Ledger, you see it's a plain white box with just a product photo on the front of it. On the top and bottom is a flat version of the company's logo. On the sides is just the product name. In fact, they've even copied the name of an Apple product, the iPod Nano, and they've taken the S naming convention from the iPhone range. No points for originality. On the back, the Ledger actually has better information, such as the fact that it supports Bitcoin, Ethereum, FIDO authentication, and USB. I think Apple can get away with not explaining what the product is or what it does on the back of the box because the chances are you already know. For Ledger though, if you pick this up in a retail store, you might not know what it was without this helpful description on the back of the box. Upon opening the box, you see the Ledger wallet neatly folded up inside its metal armor. It has a brushed aluminium finish with the logo etched into it. Now when I say armor, I really do mean it. Ledger has a video on their YouTube channel where they run over the Nano S with a truck, and then they plug it in and it works. So I'll put a link to that video in the description. On the back of the armor is a phrase that says strength in numbers, and it's written in Latin, which is a nice wink to the community. Now, first impressions is it looks remarkably like any common USB flash drive, which doesn't score at any style points, but since we're talking about security here, I think it works as a good disguise. Digging deeper into the box, past the strong foam, we find a number of accessories. You get a black lanyard with a quick release clip bearing the Ledger logo. You get a standard metal keyring, a keyring extension if you like it to hang low, I know I do, and a USB cable, again bearing the Ledger logo. And finally, you get a white envelope. Inside the envelope, there are 2 cards. The red themed card is a recovery sheet with a space for you to write down the 24-word phrase that the Nano S will display when it's first initialized. I think this is a nice touch because you can store the card in the original box and then put it under your bed or on top of your wardrobe, for example. And then the black themed card is the Getting Started guide that simply tells you to go to start.ledgerwallet.com and follow the instructions. So let's do that next. Step 1 is to plug the Nano S into your computer. You have the option of importing an existing wallet, but I recommend you just create a new one specifically for your hardware wallet. You're then asked to select a 4-digit PIN, then it'll ask you for that every time you unlock the device, so make sure you remember this number. The next step is to write down the recovery phrase. My only criticism of this step, and perhaps this is just me, but intuitively, I started writing the words in order down the first column, writing one under the other. But the way the card is laid out, word number 1 and word number 2 go on the first row, words 3 and 4 go on the second row, and so on. So I ended up having to write over the box numbers as well. After I'd written down all 24 recovery words, the Nano S asked me to confirm 2 random words from the list via a multiple choice that was displayed on the screen that's built into the device itself. This makes sense since the Nano S only has 2 buttons, one on the left, one on the right, and then you press both of them at the same time to confirm an action. And the last step was just to install the apps on my computer. The Ledger Wallet app comes as a Google Chrome app, an approach I personally don't like. You have to use the icon or a bookmark to visit the URL chrome://apps in order to use it. Now I know it might make development easier because Chrome takes care of the cross-platform stuff, but I personally would prefer a standalone Windows application. Once you get the app running though, it works just like any other wallet app. It allows you to send and receive transactions. Now there are a couple of nice features like the ability to select the number of confirmations you would like for an incoming payment before funds are available again for you to spend. I personally adjusted this to wait for 2 confirmations to balance security with speed. It also allows you to select a default fee. You can set it on high or standard or low depending on how fast you want your transactions to confirm. The only app that appeared when I first tested this was BitID, which is a good start. Now each of these settings are specific to the coin that you're dealing with, so this is flexible enough for you to say have Bitcoin set on a high fee by default, and then say you could have your Dash wallet set to a standard fee by default. At one point I purposefully unplugged the Ledger from the USB port while I was playing with the wallet software, and the software immediately locked itself and wouldn't allow me to do anything else with it. I also realized at that point that the hardware wallet doesn't actually have any kind of battery. Unless the hardware wallet is plugged in via USB, it's completely unresponsive. Unfortunately, again, the Ledger Manager app that the Nano S works with is also a Chrome application. Unlocking it works exactly the same as the wallet software that we just looked at. you have to plug the hardware wallet in via USB to get the app to display anything. Once inside, you get a list of additional apps that enable use with all the various altcoins that I mentioned in the specifications section. I installed the Dash application, and when I clicked install, the Ledger device asked me to confirm that it was okay to continue the installation and prevent any unauthorized changes. Once I gave it that confirmation by pressing once on the right hardware button, 10 seconds later, and my Ledger wallet started displaying a Dash icon in the menu. One thing that kept happening when opening and closing the software is that it didn't automatically detect the hardware wallet if I kept it plugged in and unlocked. The software would just sit there telling me to connect and unlock the device in order to continue. And this was despite it already being plugged in, connected, and unlocked. So what I had to do was unplug it, plug it back in, and re-enter my PIN, and then the software would open up. Now, after a bit of troubleshooting, I found that Windows wasn't detecting the wallet properly when I plugged it into one of the front USB ports on my computer. I tried it in both front USB ports, and the problem was exactly the same. Once I plugged it into a rear USB port though, it was detected correctly and the software opened up. It was at this point that I realized how the interface between the hardware wallet and the software is supposed to work. You use the hardware wallet kind of like a remote control. Whatever app you open up on the Ledger hardware wallet opens the corresponding wallet on your computer. Having said that though, you do have to have the software already open on your computer for this remote function to work. If I plug the device in and then select Bitcoin on the little screen, it doesn't automatically launch the software on my computer. I personally would have liked it if it had this feature, but it doesn't. I always have to manually open the software on my computer, then I can remote control it from the hardware device. The good thing about the software though is that there's no way to get it to reveal the private key, because it's safely locked away inside the hardware wallet where no one can get it. Now, even though you plug this hardware wallet into the computer, to my mind it qualifies as cold storage, since the private key has never touched my computer and no funds can be spent without the authorization of the physical device itself. And speaking of spending funds, I think it's about time we do a test transaction. So let's now run a test transaction. I'm going to use Dash for this test because at 2.5 minutes, its block time is fast and the fees on the Dash network are very low. Here I have the Dash core wallet open on the left of my screen and the Ledger Dash wallet open on the right. I'll click Receive on the Ledger wallet to generate an address, and then I'll copy that into the Dash core wallet. Since Dash offers instantly confirmed transactions using Instant X, I'll tick the box to use that and then click Send. The fee to use Instant X is 0.01 Dash, which right now is 85 cents. Funnily enough, the Ledger software didn't recognize the 5 confirmations that were given instantly by the Dash core wallet, which kind of nullified me using Instant X. The Ledger software proceeded to sit there for 5 minutes to wait for 2 regular Dash confirmations. Once I had some Dash in my Ledger wallet though, I could see how the hardware wallet prevents unauthorized spending. So I set the Ledger wallet to send the full balance back to my Dash core wallet. This transaction, by contrast, without Instant X, carried a fee of just 0.0001 Dash, which right now equates to just a fraction of a penny. Now, before the software would allow this transaction to be broadcast, I had to go to the hardware wallet, check the transaction details that were displayed on the little screen, and then click the button to confirm. The device displays the amount of Dash being sent, the address that the funds were being sent to, and the transaction fee. One press of the button on the right, and the transaction was broadcast. So, conclusion time. It goes without saying that everyone using cryptocurrencies should be using a hardware wallet. This is if you want to use a storage method that protects your funds from almost all forms of attack. The only question is, which hardware wallet should you use? Now, since this is the first hardware wallet that I have reviewed, I can't advise you on that just yet. What I can do though is give you my top 3 pros and cons of the Ledger Nano S. On the downside, the Ledger Nano S is actually 2 separate pieces, since you need to take both the device and the US cable with you everywhere in order to use it. Second, you do need a desktop, laptop, or at least a Chromebook in order to run the software. And thirdly, the black plastic housing on the device itself feels kind of cheap and flimsy. On the plus side though, the Nano S is very simple to use once you've got it set up. It can be used to protect your Bitcoin, Ethereum, Dash, Litecoin, Dogecoin, and Zcash all in one device. And with the Ledger Manager app, it's flexible enough to expand its feature set as new apps are released. So thanks for joining me today, guys. If you liked this episode, hit the like button. If you disliked it, hit the dislike button. Please leave me a comment below with some feedback and get subscribed. And please support the Cryptoverse and boost cryptocurrency adoption by going to cryptoversity.com/podcast and becoming a patron. From as little as $10 a month, you can secure Cryptoversity's future, get unlimited access to all Cryptoversity courses, and access a private patrons-only chat group where you get direct access to me. But that's all for today, guys. I will be back tomorrow with another episode of the Cryptoverse. So until then, it's me, Chris Coney, saying bye for now.